At its heart, the Spider-Man story has always been one about how do we deal with trauma. And the Spiderverse films are no different, with nearly every villain and Spider-Person having suffered their own traumatic event. Unfortunately, trauma can lead to us experiencing a lot of unpleasant emotions, such as sadness, anger, and guilt. Our brain tries to protect us from these emotions with behaviors that we call defense mechanisms. The healthiest of these are called the mature defense mechanisms, which generally give us more control and are more sustainable in the long term. Many of the heroes in these films use mature defense mechanisms to help them manage these unpleasant thoughts and feelings. And in this video, we'll have a look at some of these examples. Number 1, sublimation. Sublimation is where we take these unwanted impulses and channel them into more socially acceptable and constructive behaviors. The clearest examples of these would be how Spider-Gwen channels her emotions into her drumming, or how Miles channels his into his art. Number 2, humor. As we all know, humor is supposed to be an inherent part of every Spider-Person.
I'm trying to hold a serious adult conversation. You know, you're the only Spider-Man who isn't funny. We're supposed to be funny.
Humor can be an excellent way to indirectly talk about things that are too difficult to talk about directly, whilst also bringing a bit of laughter and joy to those around you. Number 3, anticipation. Anticipation is where you plan in a realistic way for likely future events where you may experience distress. This may not have been as obvious as the other defense mechanisms, but we can see anticipation in play when Peter B. Parker and Spider-Gwen are preparing to talk to Miles, knowing that it's going to be an extremely difficult conversation.
This is what we talked about!
You talked about this? You knew? You all knew?
I didn't know how to tell you.
Number 4, altruism. Altruism is where we use these unpleasant experiences as motivation to do things that help others. In my opinion, altruism is the core message of the Spider-Man story. Despite the hardships they suffer, they continue to get up and do things to help those around them, just like a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man would. Number 5, suppression. Suppression is where we actively try to ignore our internal distress until there's a more appropriate time in which we can deal with it. You may not have noticed this, but there is one Spider-Man who does this very well, specifically the Spider-Man who sees his therapist. If you enjoyed this video or learned something, don't forget to book in for your next appointment with the subscribe button below.